So what is the truth behind the Bhagavad Gita? Let's.
Two armies stand ready to kill each other. War elephants are roaring, drums are thundering, and in the middle of it
What is this, Bahubali?
all, one man drops his weapon. His name is Arjuna, a warrior prince facing an unthinkable dilemma, a battle against his own family. I can't do this, is what he says to himself. And beside him is his charioteer, his mentor, Krishna. But Krishna isn't just a friend, he's God. And
I have to say, what a friend. Krishna is your, like, co-pilot? Holy shit.
Human form. And what follows isn't a sermon or a prophecy, it's a conversation on a battlefield about fear and duty, meaning, and the nature of the soul. This is the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God. It is a 2,000-year-old dialogue that has guided emperors and revolutionaries and seekers from Gandhi to Oppenheimer. Why was this ancient?
Dude, what I love about this book is this story, this education, whatever you call it, lifestyle, way of life, is the oldest religion on this rock that is floating through space. This is the oldest story, and I have a funny feeling, as somebody who's never really gone in and listened to an hour-long deep dive to the Bhagavad Gita, I'm going to be able to draw parallels from where maybe Christians got inspiration from, or where Muslims got some inspiration from, or where Jews got some of their inspiration from, because there is no original thought. We are all building off of other things, and this being like the foundation. I don't say the foundation, but like maybe as far back as to my knowledge of like what a collective amount of humans agreed upon on and said, okay, this is a universal truth. I'm excited to learn.
Text born in the first place, and how did its message turn inward? Because the Gita isn't about war, it's about you standing at your own crossroads, trying to choose the right path when every choice has a cost. This is the Song of God, understanding the Bhagavad Gita. If you are a fan of ancient wisdom, or you yourself are going through a difficult time trying to decide which path to take, or you're just more interested in understanding Hindu philosophy, this is the episode for you.
Absolutely.
So sit back, relax, and welcome to Religion Camp.
Let's go, boys. Sit back and relax. Yo, that is a cool ass intro.
What's up, people, and welcome back to Religion Camp. My name is Mark Gagnon, and thank you for joining me in my tent, where every single Sunday we explore the most interesting, fascinating, controversial stories from every religion from around the world from all time. That is right. This is my attempt to understand what everyone believes. I mean, I truly don't think you can understand a people or a culture, even if they're not practicing, just to understand where people come from and who they are without understanding the God that they worship. And so this is my attempt to understand the sacred teachings of every religion from around the world, find the commonalities, the things that I can hold on to, and the things that might be beneficial that so many of my other friends and other people from around the world throughout all time have already known. And today we're diving in to some of the philosophy in one of the most integral books to sort of, Hindu culture, and sort of what many of my Hindu friends and their parents parents have read in some way, shape, or form throughout the years. Now,
in context, like, how big is the Bhagavad Gita? Is it like a double-decker sandwich? Like, a Bible is like a cheeseburger or just like a little biscuit. Is the Bhagavad Gita like, an Italian or like a Philly cheesesteak? Like, what are we talking here?
Of course, I can't do the show alone. I need you watching at home. I need God, whoever that may be. I think the God of Catholicism. Shout out to you. And also my dear friend Christos. What's up, dude?
Doing great. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. Are you Hindu?
I am not.
Neither am I. So let me just say before I start, I was not raised Hindu. I knew a couple, like Indian Hindu friends growing up.
Yep.
And I never really understood the philosophy. So
Same.
This episode is an attempt for me to understand.
Never understood it, but I always had a interest in it because I grew up loving anime, and we all know through mini anime that they use a lot of inspiration through different religions, mostly Hinduism. I'm looking at you, JJK. I'm looking at you, One Piece. Full Metal Alchemist has some levels in there. Like, there's a lot of inspiration from things that I enjoy to consume are inspired by this. So I have a funny feeling I'm also going to be inspired by this.
One of the more integral, texts to Hindu philosophy in general. And if I get anything wrong, I apologize to all my Hindus out there. My bad. All my Desi, listeners, my apologies. What's up, Baisabs? And I just want to say if I miss anything or if I mispronounce anything, I didn't grow up speaking Hindi. I don't know how to read Sanskrit. So please drop a comment if I missed anything or if I overlooked anything or if I get anything wrong. I'm completely open to feedback, and it is my only desire to pursue truth, capital T, to understand really what's going on. So if I mess anything up, please don't hesitate to correct me. But be nice about it, okay? I read all the comments, and they hurt my feelings, all right? But
same here, but I have to say, out of the world, like we have a global community over here, I have to say, the people who are correcting me on the Indian content are so nice. Even when the people aren't nice, the shit talk isn't to the same level as, like, some of the Canadians, I will say, or the Americans, like my neighbors. Dude, we get something wrong, we're going to dissect you and make you feel utterly worthless. You guys are like, hey, it's a little mistake, probably, didn't mean to. Here's the info. Here, what you didn't know. You're like, oh, thanks.
Anyway, please let me know what you think.
That's right.
I think it's like just a couple important things. Most of my Hindu friends that I talk to, they don't describe Hinduism as a religion for the most part. And obviously there are like religious elements, but I think a better way to describe it is a philosophy of life. And the Bhagavad Gita is not necessarily a religious book. It is a story about, this warrior prince and Krishna, the sort of God manifest that is there to mentor him, and this dialogue between them that, I mean, unequivocally,
besides little Krishna, is there a way that I can watch like the Bhagavad Gita instead of reading it? Because my dumb ass isn't going to sit there and read it.
Think is just full of wisdom and has so many insights that regardless of whatever your religious affiliation is, you can find something in here to help you through, your own personal life, whether it's a breakup or, a problem at work or even just a crisis in your personal life. I think there's so much wisdom just in this book, which is why it has been read and reread and dissected for basically 2 millennia. But I think in order to understand the book and sort of the text and why it's important, we kind of need some context for, why it was written and even what's in it. So if you've never read the Bhagavad Gita, more or less, here's a brief summary, okay? You have these 2 massive armies that are facing each other on a battlefield.
Ooh.
And there's war elephants and chariots and thousands of soldiers on either side. And between them is a single chariot. And in it is Arjuna. Now, this is the warrior prince. He is sort of the main character. You probably, if you grew up around, Indian folks, you might have met an Arjun in your time.
I work out with an Arjun. I was just about to say that. Shout out to you, Arjun and Riddy.
It comes from the same name. It is the sort of main character, so to speak, of the Bhagavad Gita. He's looking across the battlefield at the people that he's supposed to fight, that he's supposed to kill. And he looks across and he sees his cousins and his teachers and his grandfather, his uncles, people that he knows and loves and cares about. And it is his task to go kill them. And his hands just go limp. His bow, this famous weapon that he's carried his entire life, drops to the floor. And he sits down and he says, I can't do this. And next to him is Krishna, his charioteer and a close friend. But Krishna is also something more. Krishna is the manifestation of the divine, though the full revelation of his cosmic nature will come later in this conversation.
I want to know, leading up to this point, though, was he always blue? Because if so, that could have been like a little giveaway that this guy's a little different.
Krishna just looks at Arjuna and starts talking. And what follows is one of the strangest things you'll find in any type of religious or spiritual text. It's not a sermon in a temple or a meditation in a cave. It is a conversation on a battlefield, moments before mass violence, about maybe the deepest questions that a human being can ask oneself. Who am I? Why should I act? What is my duty? What is my purpose on this earth? How do I live with meaning when everything feels impossible? And this is ultimately the Bhagavad Gita. This is the song of God. Yeah. And for over 2 millennia, it shaped how millions and millions of people have thought and lived. Because we've all been Arjuna at some point in our lives. We're standing...
Is Stoicism kind of based, like modern day Stoicism have like a foundation in Bhagavad Gita? Because I'm already drawing a lot of parallels to these, like, who am I? What is my purpose? Why do I act? what is the feeling that I get when these things around me? Is this a good thing? Can I manifest
At a
this?
crossroads, unsure of what to do,
Oh,
what
I fuck with
direction to
this so
go,
much.
feeling like every choice has costs and that everything that we do will hurt someone. And we're torn between what we want and our duty, what we must do, between fear and purpose, between, doing the comfortable, safe thing and doing the courageous, brave thing. And so what does this ancient conversation between a
Holy
prince
shit.
and a god actually teach us? Now, to answer this question, I think it's helpful to understand what exactly is the context that this text actually exists within. So to understand it, the Bhagavad Gita isn't a standalone book. It is a part of a broader series, basically the Mahabharata, which is one of the longest epic poems ever written. Now, the Mahabharata tells the story of a difficult family conflict over a kingdom. And by the end, almost everyone is dead. And the Gita appears right at the story's breaking point, just before this war begins, in the pause between decision and action. And most scholars date it to around the 2nd or 1st century BC, although the exact date still is disputed, though its core ideas probably come from even older sort of like stories and older oral traditions. And it emerged during a time of social change in India when, rigid religious rituals were being questioned and people were looking for something more personal. What's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because you might need a little bit of help, all right? As we know,
I think
our
I need
society...
more help than this ad can deliver. But just yapping on the Bhagavad Gita right now. So if I understand this, the Mahabharata is the overarching book, and when you open up the Mahabharata, you flip to page 387, you're going to get the chapter Bhagavad Gita, right? And in the Bhagavad Gita, we have a family or are waging war between two sides that are clashing, and on one side you have the warrior Arjuna, who drops his bow and has this existential life crisis moment because he, not in that realization, but he understands that he's about to go to war with his family. Now, I don't really have much more context on why there's a conflict and war and why the family is trying to go after each other. Why would the family try to inspire millions of people in their communities and their territories to say this is not my neighbor but my enemy and then attack? And then Arjuna's right-hand man, Krishna, out of all people, goes on this Tim Dillon-esque yapping session and really got Arjuna thinking about who is he, what am I, why do I act? I mean, to be honest, I a lot of the way that this is structured in the sense of like the questions of who am I, right? What is my purpose? Do we have a purpose? Like that, those type of stoic questions or stoicism is something that, I follow in a sense of like that is my guiding principle of life. But if it has a foundation of do I just take a dive off that and like go even deeper, just free fall in?
Ancient India was a world organized around dharma, which is a word that is sort of difficult to translate, but it means something like duty or,
Dharma,
the way that things
calling,
should be, or
yeah.
righteousness. And effectively everyone had a role. Kings would rule and do king stuff, and warriors would fight, and priests would pray, and merchants would trade. And dharma was the moral order that kept the universe from falling into ultimate chaos. And then you have karma. Now, this is the law of cause and effect, the idea that every action you take ripples outward, shaping not just your life.
Dharma is one's duty, and that is the cosmic duty that you are blessed with. And then karma is the cause and effect of how you navigate and react through life, how you bump around through the lily pads of life and
but the world around you. But what's interesting about the Gita is that it sort of breaks this mold. Instead of just saying, follow the rules, do your ritual, stick to your role, you are a warrior prince, go to war. It said the real battle is not outside of you, but is actually inside of you.
Yeah.
It's not about perfect offerings or, rituals or memorizing chants. It's about mastering yourself, your mind, your emotions, your attachments to the world around you, acting with clarity and not out of, a fear or, status or desire to be liked. And the Gita shifted focus from a lot of external ritual to internal transformation. It made a lot of, what was seen as like sort of rigid, religious, rules into practical philosophy, bringing abstract spiritual questions into the lived experience of, moral sort of decision making. And it made a lot of this philosophy really practical. It took these eternal questions: what's real, what matters about my life, how should I live my life? And it brings them to earth into the confusion of, the everyday life of the person reading it. And it spoke to anyone who's ever felt stuck between who they are and who they are supposed to be, which, spoiler alert, is everyone. And what really makes the Gita stand out amongst sacred texts is the format. So unlike, the Bible's commandments or the Quran's revelations or the laws of Torah, the Gita is sort of a conversation. It's like a dialogue, almost like, Greek philosophy will have these sort of dialogues between two characters.
Yeah.
And it doesn't exist as divine orders from above, but rather a man in crisis and a God who is trying to help him through it.
A framework.
Right? It's philosophy under this pressure.
To understand from.
You have this chaos and there's wisdom to be found within it. And the battlefield isn't just like a backdrop or like a setting for the story. It is the point of the whole thing. Because at times our lives can feel like battlefields. And so the Gita reminds us that the real test of truth and purpose, it doesn't necessarily happen in temples or while you're meditating in a cave and you have this sort of divine light and you realize the path. It happens in the middle of everyday decisions when everything's on the line and you still have to decide who you're going to be. So let's go back to Arjuna, right? He's sitting there slumped in his chariot. His bow is lying at his feet.
And this guy is not a coward.
He's not a coward, right? But this is just a man who has fought demons and he's won impossible battles and he's trained under gods
literal
themselves.
Demons.
He's one of the finest warriors who's ever lived in the universe. But right now, he's looking across the battlefield and he's seeing the people that he loves, his family, his friends, and he just cracks. He has this moment where he's like, I just can't do this. And so he starts pouring his heart out, listing every reason that's tearing him apart. If I fight, I destroy my own family. How is that even a victory? I'm ruling over, the corpses of the people that I love. Even if we win the kingdom, what's the point of any of this? How could I enjoy power when it's built on literally the blood of the people that I cherish most? And as he's describing this, his voice is shaking. His body feels like it's stiff, like he's like made of like stone. And he says he would rather die unarmed than lift his bow against the people that he loves. And the thing that makes this story so powerful is that he's not wrong. His confusion and the pain that he feels, it's unreasonable, right? Like it's not weakness, it's not fear, it's just this human experience. I mean, think about what you would do, right? If you were in that situation, what would you do? Would you fight against the people that you love? I mean,
I couldn't.
There's probably moments in your life when you felt completely stuck. And it's not because you're lazy or because you're afraid. It's because every option that you do would just feel wrong. You're in a job that's draining you, but quitting would be irresponsible and you like the other people you work with, so you don't want to do that. But also it's hurting you. Maybe you're letting down your team, the people that depend on you. Like there's all of these.
That could be a job, just the way that he described. That could be a relationship. That could be you on a sports team. That could be you and me in so many different situations throughout life.
Decisions that we're making all the time. But maybe you stay at the job and you're betraying yourself more and more, and you're trapped between guilt and fear and uncertainty, and you don't know what to do, and you don't know who to talk to, and there's no way out of this situation. And that's ultimately what Arjuna is going through, right? And maybe it's on a smaller scale, but to you, it's the biggest issue that you're facing in your life at that moment. And so what he's facing is what we now call moral injury. This is this conflict between duty and conscience. Basically, like this clash between what we're supposed to do and what feels right in your heart. And as anyone that's been in this situation, it just eats you alive. So he turns to Krishna and basically says, tell me what to do. I'm lost. And that is the moment where the Gita truly begins. Not with just answers, but with questions so heavy that it brings everything else around these two characters just to a halt. How do you act when doing the right thing feels impossible? Now, Arjuna's breakdown, again, it's not weakness. It is the first step to attaining wisdom. You can't find clarity until you admit that you're lost, and you can't grow until you face the fact that you're actually stuck right now. And the breakdown is where the breakthrough ultimately starts.
Wow.
And so Krishna, looking at his shaken friends sitting in that chariot, doesn't hand him an easy solution like, oh, do this and you'll save the day and everyone will be happy. Instead, he starts to unfold a completely new way of seeing the world, one that will turn Arjuna's confusion into understanding. So Krishna's first response might sound a little cold, but basically he tells Arjuna, you're mourning for people who don't need your grief. You think you can kill them, but you can't. Because the real them, their true essence, can't be killed. Now, for context, he's talking about the Atman. This is the eternal self. Yeah. Think of it like this. You are not your body. Your body is just the thing that you live in, right?
Yeah, it's
like
the vessel.
You know, it's like the clothes that you wear or the house that you live in, right? It's not you. Like if you lose your arm, you don't think like, oh, you lost some of yourself. It's like the body is a vessel. It is a way that you sort of interact with reality, but it's not the essence of you. The body ages, it breaks down, it dies, but the consciousness inside of you, the awareness, the observer, that you, that notices your thoughts and feels your emotions, that doesn't die. It doesn't change.
This would be like your energy, your chakra, your nin ability, your hockey, the thing, your anima. For those who are watching Gachiakuto with us, like there's times when somebody walks into a room and you could feel the energy of the room completely shift due to their entrance of the room. That is what he's talking about. The vessel, the meat that walks in didn't do anything, but the energy within it, you know, that the key within it, like if it was Dragon Ball Z, is just dark and heavy. While others are light and warming.
Actually
inviting.
Born, so it can't actually end. And in Western terms, you know, being in America, these concepts of you and, you know, sort of like this eternal consciousness, the you-ness that exists within you, it might sound kind of weird, but you can kind of think of it as
two
like
wolves. We have stories for this
the difference between like your roles and like your essence, right? You might be an employee, a friend, a parent, a citizen, but if you strip all of those things away, what is still there? Who is the you that's underneath all of that? And the Gita says that there's something deeper than all of these sort of external identities that society puts onto you. Something that existed before your thoughts or fears or anything like that, and it stays constant no matter what. And that thing, that whatever that is, isn't separate from the world around you. It is ultimately connected to everything. Now, this isn't just some mystical idea floating in the clouds. It is really practical, because once you truly see that you are more than your situation, you are not your stress, you're not your mistakes, your temporary successes, your failures, right? Everything shifts.
Oh, I love it.
And the fear sort of loosens its grip, and life starts to make, you know, sort of a different kind of sense. Now, before we go any deeper, it helps to understand what yoga is. Now, in America, most people hear yoga and they think like,
I say, you want me to do some stretching?
And exercise mats and like breathing
poses. Is that what you want me to do?
But in Sanskrit, the word yoga actually comes from yuj, which means to unite or to yoke. So yoga isn't about flexibility, it's about connection, ultimately. It is the union between your individual self and the greater reality that sort of persists behind everything. It's about bringing your limited, kind of ego-driven self into harmony with that sort of infinite thing that underlies existence. And in that sense, yoga is both, you know, the goal, right? It is the union, but it is also the path, and it is, you know, the sort of the practice that it takes to get you to that union. So when Krishna talks about different types of yoga, he's really talking about the different ways of living, the different paths that can lead you towards that inner freedom and peace and clarity that we all want so badly. And so the first one he introduces
when
to
he's
Arjuna
talking about
is
this, my
karma
mind
yoga.
goes to Avatar, the
And
Last
this is
Airbender.
the path of action without attachment. So basically, in simple terms, it is, you know, do your work, do your duty, but do it with care and do it because it's your responsibility. And don't get obsessed with the outcome, right? Just do the right thing because it is right, not because you want to be praised or you want people to see you as a moral person or the reward or the money that's maybe associated with doing it.
No, do it because you know it is the right thing to do, nothing more, nothing less.
Don't let your self-worth rise and fall with the results, right? I mean, you can think of it like an actor that pours their heart into, you know, like a role for a movie, knowing they can't control whether the movie audience loves it or they just walk out and they hate it, or a doctor treating a patient with full focus, knowing the outcome isn't guaranteed, a parent raising a child with love, knowing that the child will make their own choices one day. You do the work and you do it honestly, and then you just let go of the outcome. And most of us live very oppositely today, right? We're addicted to results. Everything's
That
analytics,
is
everything's
tough.
data. We're looking at our phone for likes, trying to
That
see
is,
who commented.
yeah, our world is
We won't go
data
see a
driven,
movie before we see the
results driven.
reviews. We let our mood swings sort of like dictate
We won't
every
buy a
little
game
outcome, and it
unless our
becomes exhausting.
favorite streamer
And
plays
the
it and
Gita says
loves
that
it.
exhaustion comes from trying to control everything, even the things we can't control, which is, it's idiotic. It's nonsensical. And so do your part, release the rest. I mean, the Stoics are basically saying the same thing, right? Focus on what is in your control and let go of what isn't, right? The Serenity Prayer in Christianity is borrowed often from, these sort of Stoic ideas. I think it was Epictetus that originally wrote.
Did I not call this at the beginning of the video? I told you. Christianity, Stoicism, there's no like true original thought. We're all building off of something and just kind of twisting the color, maybe adding a little piece here and calling it something new, but it's really just built upon the past. And I like learning all of these, because if we look at like Bruce Lee, the guy who took a lot of different martial arts, like the good from a lot of different martial arts, put it together and made a new one. I want to do that with just culture, religion, tradition. So many are so cool and have so much like, okay, this is a good thing to apply to your life. I don't care where it comes from. It's just a good thing, a good way to apply to your life to be a good human being, increase your energy, increase your level of energy, and ideally attract more people like that into your life.
But this sort of moral dilemma that, there's things you can control and things you can't control. And the things you can control, you shouldn't be worried about because you can control them. And the things you can't control, you shouldn't be worried about because you can't control them. And so this is the dichotomy of control as it's taught within the Stoics. And the Serenity Prayer, give me the courage to change what I can't, and, sort of the serenity to accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And mindfulness teachers call it non-attachment. And this is, basically one of the main teachings in the Gita that was talking about this long before any of these other people. So Krishna also emphasizes balance, not swinging to extremes, right? Not chasing constant pleasure, not pushing yourself with pain, not starving yourself, but not giving in to every little craving. Don't isolate yourself, but, don't lose yourself in the crowd. It's about equanimity, the steadiness of mind, the ability to stay calm when life is really good and stay calm also when it's not that good. And, there's even in chapter 2 of the Gita, it talks about, seasonal changes, and that even though the seasons change, you continue to do your work. You do, whatever your purpose is. And, you don't get sort of discouraged by the bad seasons, and you don't get distracted when the seasons are really good. You just stay true. And oftentimes we talk about, overcoming the tough times, but we don't really talk about overcoming the good times, right?
Yeah.
We don't talk about staying focused in the times of, great success. And that success can also distract us, maybe more than, desperation or despair can distract us. And it's that kind of inner strength that the Gita talks about, and it shows us how to build. And then Krishna also talks about emotional mastery, that inner discipline that lets you act with clarity even when everything around you feels so chaotic. And here is a really important part. Krishna isn't telling Arjuna to sit back and do nothing. He's telling him to act fully and decisively, but from a completely different place inside of himself, not fear or anger or insecurity to prove something or avoid something, but just from duty, from clarity, and from being in line with who Arjuna truly is. But the question ultimately is, okay, well, how do you get there? How do you know who you truly are in order to do that? And Krishna understands that Arjuna's uncertainty isn't resolved just by seeing himself as a part of something greater, right? Lasting peace requires, understanding, of course, but it also practical tools for living with clarity all the time. So Krishna shifts the conversation from theory to actual practice. He introduces Arjuna to several paths, ways of living and acting that actually help cultivate strength from the inside out. These different paths include karma yoga. This is like the selfless action. Jnana yoga, which is knowledge. And dhyana yoga, which is meditation. And bhakti yoga, which is devotion. So to understand these, again, when I'm saying yoga, don't think the normal yoga stuff. But, in the Gita, yoga is it's something bigger. It is that union that we talked about. So Krishna lays out these three paths. And the great thing is that they're all valid in different ways, right? People are different. And so what works for one person might not work for another. And the Gita gives us options. The first we've already talked about briefly. This is karma yoga. This is to do your duty without clinging to the outcome, right? So just to be fully engaged with the world, with responsibilities to do, work to do, people to serve, things to create. You can think of, a doctor that pulls like a 24-hour shift to save someone's life, not because they want, an award or be patted on the back or to make, millions of dollars. They do it because that is their duty. And karma yoga teaches that your life itself is an offering, that every action can become sacred, and if it's done with the right intention, which again is to remove yourself from the outcome, right? You don't have to run from the world to find meaning. You just find it by showing up, letting go of the ego, and just serving something bigger than yourself. And the second path is bhakti yoga. This is the yoga of devotion. This is about love, surrender, and opening your heart to something bigger than you and letting that connection transform. It can be, devotion to nature or to humanity or truth or a deity or to beauty itself. And again, bhakti yoga, like much of Hinduism, isn't about rules or dogma. It's about feeling. It says you don't have to understand everything, right? You don't have to figure it all out, which is maybe good for me to honestly hear, because I do so much of these pods to try to figure it all out. But sometimes the path is simply loving something so deeply that it pulls you out of, your small, anxious self into something much bigger than you. And the third is jnana yoga. And this is the yoga of knowledge. This is the path for a philosopher, for a seeker, for someone who needs to understand. It is about seeing through the illusion of reality to, questioning everything, piercing the surface to discover what is actually real. And this involves a lot of meditation and study and sort of watching your thoughts until you start to see patterns, and then examining your beliefs until you uncover the truth that actually is beneath them. And jnana yoga teaches that the same mind that created your suffering can also set you free, right? Like this is, the mind that tells you like, oh, you don't actually need to work out today, or, just eat that food that is bad for you, that you've eaten, that you say you don't want to eat anymore. Just do it. It's fine. And that the same mind that creates that suffering can also be the mind that gets you out of that. And you can see through the stories that you tell yourself and recognize, what you're telling yourself about what is actually real. Now, here's the thing. Most of us end up using all three paths at different times in our lives. You might work selflessly and love deeply and, reflect thoughtfully, all in the same week, maybe the same day, right? What's interesting about the Gita is that it doesn't force you to pick one. It just lays out options, and it says find the path that works best for you at this specific moment. And the goal here isn't about following rules for a higher power. It's about liberation. It's about, to be free from fear and ego and the cycle of wanting and worrying and anxiety. The goal is to live fully. Now, halfway through their conversation, something crazy happens. Arjuna asks Krishna to reveal his true nature, and Krishna agrees. And what comes next is one of the most breathtaking moments in any religious text ever. Krishna reveals his cosmic form, the Vishvarupa, the universal shape of existence itself.
Super Saiyan.
And you can imagine in the text, right? It's pretty difficult to understand. Try taking in all of reality at once, not just the surface, but the depths.
He hit him with Gojo's domain expansion. Krishna literally looked at Arjuna right in the face and said, domain expansion.
Not just the present moment, every moment in time, past, future, all happening simultaneously. Stars are born and dying, galaxies spinning, life emerging, ending, emerging again, creation, all of it. And Arjuna sees it all. Gods, demons, humans, animals, oceans, all contained within Krishna's infinite cosmic form. And he sees the warriors that he's about to fight, already fallen, already absorbed back into the endless flow of existence. He sees himself. He sees everything that ever was, everything that will ever be, woven into a pattern so vast and intricate that his mind can barely keep up. And he's both overwhelmed and terrified and struck with awe. And he begs Krishna to return to the normal, familiar human form because this vision is just too much to bear, right? Like astronauts will talk about not the same thing, but a similar thing, like this astronaut effect or the overview effect, right? That they'll go to space and they'll look at Earth, and then they have this realization that things are connected, that borders are fake, that we're all a part of this tiny, fragile little planet flying through the solar system. And they're just struck with this feeling of wow, I am a piece of this bigger thing. Or, physicians studying quantum mechanics, and they've recognized that the universe is way stranger and more interconnected than we could ever have imagined.
And
the Gita is
probably
saying
multiple.
that is what's real, not the tiny slice of reality that you see from your perspective wherever you're sitting right now, but it is the whole thing happening simultaneously. That time is non-linear, that it's all happening at once, that it's
Hindu,
terrifying. And
this is all about the truth about the Bhagavad Gita's true message and about Hinduism. I just find it fascinating, right? Like I was raised as a Christian and all of that, typical American jazz, but I've always found interest in Hinduism, and the Mahabharata is an interesting text. From what I'm gathering, it is. I've heard parts and pieces, and this is the part of this and this is the part of this, but contextually, the truth about all of it, what does it mean? I've never actually sat there and learned about it. This is fascinating.
Also amazing and incomprehensible. And in that vastness, your little problems, your fears, your wins, your losses, they don't disappear. They just get
now I understand when people say Hinduism
bigger play.
isn't
and they
a
still
religion.
Matter,
it's
but not
a way
the way
of life.
that you originally thought, right? Because now it's all a part of something much bigger. And the vision doesn't make Arjuna passive. It doesn't make him cynical or nihilistic. Instead, it gives him this perspective. And it reminds him that he's not the center of the story. He's a participant in something that is ancient and ongoing, that was way before him and will continue way after him. And somehow, almost paradoxically, that realization makes him free. And when the vision fades and Krishna returns to his human form, Arjuna does something striking. He doesn't walk away. He doesn't abandon the world and become like a hermit in a cave. He picks up his bow and he steps back into his role, into his duty, into his life.
Dharma, yeah.
But he's a different person. His confusion is gone, and the paralysis that he had before is lifted, and he acts, but his action now comes from a different place. It's not ego or anger or the need to prove himself. It's from clarity and alignment with something way bigger than his own desires or his own ego. And this is the core of what the Gita teaches, that enlightenment isn't about escaping life. It's not about checking out of society and going to a cave and avoiding responsibilities or pretending that the world doesn't exist. It's about acting fully and giving everything that you have while staying free on the inside, right? You still work, you still love, you struggle, create, but you're not consumed by it. You're not crushed when things go wrong, and you're not carried away and egotistical when things go right. You're just steady the entire time. And the Gita doesn't promise that life will suddenly be easy.
That's beautiful.
It just promises something.
To me, that's
deeper, I guess.
Stoicism.
That, you can find peace in the chaos, and you can act powerfully and decisively without being destroyed by the results, and that
a little Taoism.
You can live fully without being
stoicism.
owned by every decision that you make, and that our transformation, similar to Arjuna's transformation, isn't about becoming God or becoming superhuman. It's about becoming fully human, but in a calm and courageous and a freer sense. Now, here's something that's important to get. The Gita doesn't really speak with just one voice, or maybe it kind of does, but it sort of depends on who you are. So even within Hinduism, people have read it in totally different ways. So Adi Shankaracharya, way back in the 8th century, read the whole Gita and said that the Gita was about jnana, this knowledge, right? And so for him, the world is basically an illusion, this maya, and the freedom comes from realizing that your soul and the ultimate reality, Brahman, are the same things. Then comes Ramanuja, who basically flips the focus to bhakti yoga, this devotion. So for him, it's about surrender and a love for God, not just knowing, but feeling this connection with the divine. And then there's Madhva, who went a completely other way entirely.
Madhva has
he said
a solid chest and
the
shoulder.
soul and God are always separate, and that devotion connects you to the divine, but they never actually merge. And these aren't small disagreements. They're just completely different worldviews, yet all of them are pulled from the same text. And that's part of, the genius of the Gita, is that it can mean different things for different people at different times. It's like a mirror. So what you see depends on what you yourself are bringing to it.
What is that?
So you can see, big differences between, Indian and Western readers. So for many Hindus, the Gita isn't just philosophy. It is a part of daily life. It's something that, you chant, you live with, you think about in your day-to-day struggles. And for Western readers, they read it more as a philosophy or almost like a self-help book. It's lessons on mindfulness and duty and calmness. It's, it's not something sacred. It's more like insightful ancient wisdom that they can draw on.
Exactly. It's like a framework on how to live your life and try to accumulate as much good karma as possible, right? fulfill what we've learned as your dharma or your duty. Who are you as a person? Right? There's some people who are born, if this is an Asmongold stream, he would say that there are some people who are born to turn bolts. Well, that is true, but there's some people who are kids who are just born to be artists, and no matter how much you do, whatever you do, a paintbrush is always going to find their way into a hand, or a microphone for them to sing, or a book for them to read off literature so that they can be the best lawyer, or a scalpel because they're not completely psychotic, because they're a doctor and they're doing surgeries. Like, that is their calling, right? And that is ultimately what I want you, and even for me, I think I have found mine, but for you in your life to be able to resonate when you wake up, to do something that you're pulled to do, not something that you feel like you're pushed to do. Druidry, Order of Bards, Ovitus, and Druids
in their life. And then there's a split between,
We're gonna have to look that
scholars
one
and
up.
seekers, right? Like, academics will
is?
look at it and say, like, well, when was it written?
Over my
What was the
head.
social context? How does it fit in the Mahabharata? Like, all this stuff. Whereas, like, seekers or practitioners will ask, like, well, what does this mean for me? How do I apply it to my life right now? And what's interesting is that both are valid, right? One wants to understand the Gita, the other one wants to live it. And maybe that's what makes it so fascinating. Like, the sort of the intangibles of the text is that it is big enough for all of us, for every culture, generation, for every individual to find something in it that speaks to their own daily life. Now, the Bhagavad Gita didn't stay in India, right? Over the last 2 centuries, it crosses oceans and, landed in the hands of people who've never heard of Krishna or karma, or they still think yoga is about stretches or something. And, it's given people meaning in their own lives that, whatever their religious tradition was, couldn't give them. So the first English translations actually came out in 1785 by Charles Wilkins, backed by Warren Hastings, the British Governor General of India. And ironically, the colonizers who ruled India were now reading a book that kind of challenged everything that they believed about, like this pagan culture that needed to be civilized. Hastings even wrote that its ideas would survive when the British dominion in India shall have long ceased to exist. So even in that moment of sort of British mandate India, they recognized these ideas are sort of eternal to the people that understand them. And then shortly thereafter came American thinkers, right? You can think Emerson, Thoreau, and Emerson called it the voice of an old intelligence, literally called it ancient wisdom. And Thoreau read it by the fire at Walden Pond, and used the lessons in the Bhagavad Gita on simplicity and detachment to sort of guide his quiet sort of experiment.
That's a crazy revelation for the British who are
this
controlling
moment
India
in
at that
time where
point,
he
to
was
be
just
like,
sort of
holy
living as a
shit,
hermit
this
in the
is
woods.
gonna be
And in the 20th
forever.
century, Gandhi turned to the Gita for strength, and he called it literally his spiritual dictionary. He saw it not as a call to war, but as a guide to action, to fighting injustice without hate, to nonviolent rebellion.
Yeah, but
to
so many
act
people are
without
conflicted on
being
Gandhi.
so obsessed with, victory or defeat, just to do his duty, whatever his purpose was. And that idea really shaped India's freedom struggle, and then later inspired Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement in America. But in the West, the Gita also got a bit lost in translation some way, right? Like, people picked up this, the calm and peace part, and they kind of ignored the duty or the struggle part, or, they turned it into a new agey self-help thing, manifest this, let go of that. And a lot of the hard questions about dharma and karma and yoga were sort of flattened into simple things like duty and fate and discipline. And
God damn it, I'm doing it now as I'm trying to get it. God dang it, I twisted it.
Kind of lost the deeper meaning of what it actually means to, a lot of Hindu readers. But still, the Gita's impact was massive. I mean, what's sort of ironic is, Oppenheimer, part of the Manhattan Project that actually developed the nuclear bomb. He actually kept a copy of the Gita on his desk, and later said that when he witnessed the Trinity test, he remembered Krishna's chilling words, and he literally said, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." So even today, the Gita keeps showing up, not as
become death.
A dusty scripture, but as a mirror for anyone that's trying to find clarity in the chaos of their lives. Now, of course, over the millennia, the Gita has been, sort of critiqued and analyzed and scrutinized by many people, right? No religious text will last thousands of years without raising some questions. And the Bhagavad Gita, despite all of its brilliance, carries some tension that I think, probably deserves some attention.
But it is the oldest of the frameworks or religion context, is it not?
So first, and
Jay,
probably the biggest one,
I'm
is
reading. I'm
a conversation about
waiting
violence.
to
So
comment
Krishna
after the video.
urges Arjuna to fight and to kill and to fulfill his duty as a warrior, even though it means slaughtering his own family. And for a text that later inspired Gandhi's whole movement of nonviolence, that's kind of like a hard pill to swallow. It seems like a contradiction, right? Like Gandhi had to bend over backwards to read the Gita as an inner battle, not like a literal war. But the text itself isn't so symbolic, right? Like Krishna is pretty clear. Arjuna must fight. The blood, the bodies, the death, it's all real. So the question is, does the Gita glorify war? Well, again, not exactly. It kind of
Is this
depends.
what people
It's
say?
not saying
Like
violence is
extreme,
good. It's
like
saying that
Hindu
if fighting
extremists?
is your dharma, which again, it's difficult to really translate, but if that is like your purpose, do it without hatred or ego. And it's a subtle difference, but one that is easy to twist into a justification for anything, even atrocity. And then, of course, there's the conversation around caste. Okay, so the Gita keeps returning to this idea of dharma or svadharma, right? Your own duty, your role in life. And Krishna tells Arjuna it's better to do your duty badly than someone else's well. And that sounds noble until you see how, human beings have used this, right?
Yeah.
And they've used it in many ways that have been pretty terrible, right? To defend caste divisions, to tell people like, hey, stay in your place. And for centuries, that line was a cage disguised as wisdom. And then, of course, there's conversations about free will. So Krishna tells Arjuna, like, the warriors that he's about to fight are already dead. Their fate is already sealed. It's already been written. So is Arjuna choosing freely, or is he just playing out this script and his free will is actually suspended? And the Gita seems to say both, right? Like act, but know that the result is already decided. Depending on how you read it, it can be really liberating for some or like terrifying for others. Like, what do you mean? I don't have free will. Everything I do has already been decided. It's a fate that I'm just sort of playing a role in. And compared to other scriptures, the Gita is very unusual. And I really shouldn't even call it a scripture. It's just an ancient story, an ancient text. It's not, the same as, the Bible or the Quran. So, it's not a list of, laws or divine commandments. It's a conversation in this chaos. And there's no single authority or voice or clear do this, don't do that. It is ultimately a personal philosophical journey. And that's what makes it so timeless, but also really slippery at times. But here's the catch. The Gita doesn't really talk about society. It doesn't tell you how to build a fair social system, or it doesn't tell you how to help the weak or to stop injustice. It's about your inner struggle, not social reform. And that's powerful for the seeker, but really limited for, the world builder. But still, none of these critiques really cancel out the value, in my opinion. Like every sacred text has light and potentially some elements of it that are difficult to explain. And the real test is whether we are,
Jay saying karma, if he understands it correctly, is what you do here and now will follow you to the next life. We lost our dharma, as most people are doing jobs we were never meant to do in life, so life becomes miserable. Jay, when he was bringing that up, that's exactly what I thought of like, it's better to do something that you love and maybe not make a lot of money in it versus do something that you absolutely hate but make a lot of money in.
Brave enough or capable enough to try to see both. So why does a conversation from over 2,000 years ago set in an ancient battlefield with a god, a mentor, still matter today? Well,
Because
I think
it's a
it's
damn
kind
good
of for
story.
everything that we've said. And I think it's, we're all standing in our own version of Arjuna's chariot, right? We are facing some type of impossible choice, whether it's, relationship, work, whatever, and we're caught between different values and we're paralyzed by fear or guilt. And we're all just trying to figure out what it actually means to live meaningfully when the world is so overwhelming. And especially today, I mean, now more than ever with, burnout and being
Social
overworked
media,
in your job
for
or
sure.
anxiety that, am I doing the right thing? Am I dating the right person? Everyone's told all the time on Instagram, like, oh, hustle, optimize, achieve, produce.
Mid-max.
But yet we're all exhausted, right? We have more
We're not
information than
happy.
we've ever had in the history of humankind, but we're more confused. There's more connection, right? Like we can call up our friend on a moment's notice where you couldn't even do that.
I can live stream this and hang out with my homie Jay over here and we can have a conversation from two different points in the freaking world at a snap of a finger.
50 years ago. But now we're more lonely than we've ever been. We have more options, but we're also more paralyzed. I mean, restaurants have to put fewer options than they're able to make because the consumer will get too overwhelmed by having too many things.
Too stupid.
And what's interesting is that the Gita speaks directly to this. It says, you're suffering because you are living from the wrong place. You're letting your worth depend on outcomes you can't control. You're identifying with roles or possessions or achievements that are all temporary, that are not actually who you are. You're, sort of mistaking the surface of life for the actual depth. But there is another way, and that you can act without being destroyed by results. You can find something inside of you that doesn't change with, circumstances or, something in your life shifting. You can live with purpose and peace at the same time. And that's what I think makes the Gita radical, specifically for its time, is that it's not about religion. You don't have to believe in Krishna as a deity. You don't have to adopt like a faith. It's just offering something more fundamental. It is a way of seeing or being that can ultimately set you free. And it's about realizing that you are not your thoughts, that you can watch your mind without being controlled by it, that your actions matter, but your identity doesn't have to rise and fall with every, success or failure, that you can love deeply without clinging, or work hard without burning out, and you can care without being crushed when things don't go your way. And these aren't just ancient ideas. They are ideas that show up everywhere. And the words change, but the insight ultimately stays the same, that, this freedom can come from within. And the Gita gives us something our world, I think, needs in a lot of ways. It is, a way to act ethically in a complicated reality. And it doesn't offer a simple answer. It doesn't just say like, oh, follow your heart and do the rules, follow X, Y, Z. It asks you to think deeply and reflect on your duty,
Totally
who you
agree.
are, and act from your highest understanding, whatever it is at the time, all while letting go of the outcome or the attachment to being right. Right? It's a guide for living when there's no easy answers. At the end of the
I
Bhagavad
totally
Gita,
agree
Krishna
with you,
tells
Jay.
Arjuna, I've given you this knowledge, now
100%.
choose. The decision is yours. And that's the final teaching. You have to decide. No one can do it for you. There's no text. There's no teacher. There's not even a God that can live your life or make your choices. You have to step into your own power, your own duty, and act decisively. So Arjuna chooses to fight, not because fighting is good or because it's bad, but it's just because that is his
role. That is who he is.
dharma. That is his role in that moment. And your dharma might be completely different. I hope it is, right? It might be to create or to heal or to teach or to build or to speak truth. And
I'm hoping mine is to yap and make you guys laugh. I love putting smiles on people's faces and just trying to be funny, right? Like I hope that is truly what I can do for you guys watching this. When you watch it at some point in time in the video, just have a reflection, maybe a little smile on your face.
the specifics don't matter, but what matters is that you show up in that moment and you act from clarity, not from fear or outcome or success, or to not piss off people, and to give what is yours to give. And the Gita ends sort of where it begins, right? On a battlefield. But now Arjuna is ready, not because he has answers, but because he found his center. He understands what his role is, and he's learned to act without being destroyed by action, to care without being consumed by the caring, and to live fully while staying, free on the inside. And I think maybe that's the message that we can take away. Like the Gita has been saying this all along, that chaos isn't going away. Like
I
things
actually
are only
want
going
to
to
read
get more
this for
chaotic
like my
or
own
stay the
self
same
and
level.
absorb it.
And the hard
Instead of
choices aren't
just
going to
hearing it
stop.
this way.
The uncertainty, the loss, it's all a part of being alive. And you don't have to be destroyed by it. You can find stillness in all of this. You can find purpose in this confusion. And there's freedom in
America,
the midst
for
of all this
sure,
chaos. And ultimately, that is your duty. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a brief sort of snapshot about
up, Jackie?
the Bhagavad Gita, this ancient sacred text, and why it has been
Dude,
so
this
captivating
was-
for so many people for so long.
I gotta
I mean,
I gotta
again,
find this on Spotify and listen to like the whole Mahabharata. This is, I am picking up everything this is putting down, like little breadcrumbs, just a little trail. And I'm just like,
I find it fascinating. I look at this show, and like sort of my role in the show is like, I just want to see what is helpful for me and for other people from any religion. Like, I don't care where it comes from, just as long as it's resonant and, it has some truth. I guess as someone that grew up Catholic, my only criticism would be like, all of this peace and calm doesn't come from within yourself. It comes from God. But the way that you create that devotion, that connection with God,
yourself.
Comes through the things that you do. Like, you can't just sit there and be like, well, God will, pay my rent. It's like, well, no, you need to go out and you need to perform your duty and do these things, and then, create basically a pathway to connecting with the divine, whether that's through prayer or, service, whatever else it may be. And then, obviously there's other things with like, Christian theology that don't necessarily align, like past life, predetermination, free will, etc. But again,
But a lot of that, I think, could be, if you take it literally, if you take it metaphorically speaking, and you use it as symbolism of like, I mean, and I know we've all had this thought of like us in a previous life, like we've had dreams of places that we've never been. It's
just looking at the text as something practical that you can apply to your life. I mean, the biggest things for me is like,
your keyboard's half
again,
falling
I think a
apart.
Stoic principle
Clean that
is
shit.
really
I wonder
helpful
if
is
you
just
could
like
roll a
letting
blunt
go of
with
the
all
outcome.
of the weed
Like,
scrappings
I do
that are
so
in
much
that
where I'm
keyboard.
like, oh, was it good? And I'm like, well, let's just see, did the audience laugh? Like
let's
is
be
this
honest,
joke
Jackie.
good? I'm like, well, did the audience laugh?
You're a
or
little
not?
stoner too.
And like, it's so outcome driven.
I bet
Like,
if we
even
did the
with
same
this
thing
show,
with
like,
mine,
I'll
we could
post an
probably roll a
episode. I'm
few
like,
blunts.
well, was it a good episode or not? And if the views are really good, then I'm like, well, I guess it was good. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't know if that's the best way to go about things, that I should probably just do things because it's the right thing to do, or it's my duty, or, I feel compelled to do it. And if there's no views in it, then that's fine. If people don't resonate and say like, I love this, like, that's also okay. What matters is that I did it. And that ultimately is my purpose,
And I'm just going to say this for streaming and the streaming world, because that is just so much of us where, and I'm speaking to me here. Well, I will look over the go live button and I'll just sit there and ponder. What if I go live and nobody watches? Or what if I do this and terms of service comes down? Or and like all of these things, all of these outcomes that I really can't control. I'm sitting there wondering how I can control them. And I feel there's so many streamers, so many content creators that do it. And just watching this video, I hope you have the courage to change the things you can control. I hope you have the wisdom to know what you can't control. And I hope you give yourself some grace, because as we gain experience, we're going to gain the wisdom to be able to tell the difference between the two. Because we're all human, we're all going to make mistakes. But there are so many times we just sit here. I almost did it this morning. I almost didn't go live. I almost just recorded this like privately, and then I was going to upload it. And then no, if I want to do the damn thing, I need to stop getting attached to the outcome and just get attached to doing the damn thing. Just going live, having fun, communicating with whoever in the chat, whether it just be Jay, whether it be Jackie, whoever else is in here, even if it's by myself. Don't get attached to the outcome at all. Just get attached to the actions of doing it. And ideally, build some good karma